here on Liquid Lunch, another Lalo song, and we're here now with Elizabeth Verwey from Small Office Mentors. Welcome, Elizabeth. Great to have you here.
Thank you, Hugh.
You look great with that color. The color, your ensemble today is it's doing all the right things, Elizabeth.
Great. Well, this is my color. I own it.
It pops, as they say.
Great.
Okay, so we're talking about small office mentors, and where do you want to get started?
Yeah, sure. Well, you've been with the Toronto Dollar for quite some time. We wanted to talk a little bit about your business, and then at the end we were talking about getting into a discussion because you've had some experience with the Toronto Dollar, so
Fabulous.
we wanted to get into that. But perhaps we can talk about your consulting and how you work with your clients. And
Sure. Yes. Well, Small Office Mentors has been around 14 years, and typically I'll work with a client once a month because I find that gives them time to do the things. We come up with goals every month that they'll strive for, and we'll break them down, that sort of thing.
Right.
But often I'll meet with a client once and, take them where they want to go, give them some ideas, cut their learning curve, that
Right.
sort of thing.
You mean one visit and they're okay?
One visit and they're where they want to be.
Wow.
yeah,
Yes.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Tell me your dreams, I'll
it's-
get you there.
Really?
It's flexible. Yeah.
Customized to each client.
So it
Right,
sounds like
cool.
a bit of a business coaching type of scenario.
The reason I chose mentoring is because I do invest a lot in my clients, and it's I'm cutting their learning curve because I've done it. I've grown projects to the national level, and I've grown 4 different businesses, so I can take what they're doing, and of course now after over a decade of helping people, I have a whole bunch of success stories to share with them and to introduce them to other mentors as well, rather than coaching. Yeah. A
Right.
coach doesn't necessarily have to have done what you want to do.
Right.
Oh, okay.
That's a good
Maybe
point.
you could
Yeah.
make the distinction with that.
Well,
about
as I
that,
said,
yeah.
typically I've been there, done
Yeah.
that, got the T-shirt, and I
So-
can actually introduce them to people who
Right.
are further ahead in their
So
path.
if you go to a business coach, they may not have necessarily had a business.
Exactly. Yeah, that may be their
That's
first business
kind of a
is
problem,
as a
I'd
coach.
say.
Yeah.
A little bit, because how do you coach a business if you haven't run a business?
Well, what I've heard them say is that
Yeah.
through asking questions, they'll draw out what the person really wants. But I say that we turn to mentors when we're ready to see beyond our own vision.
Okay.
So, I can see past where you want to go. So,
Yeah, I naturally assumed perhaps that a business coach would, kind of start a business and then coach other businesses. But I guess it isn't necessarily the case. You could take some courses and still that. And maybe that would be quite effective. But at the same time, if I'm a small business person, I kind of want someone with a fair amount of experience because I'm already, doing a lot. And I'm running my own business. So I want someone that has that experience. So that's kind of good that you do that.
Where
Very
did you
good.
get the idea to do the mentoring? Because I think, coaching, business coaching seems like a relatively new idea, or life
Yes.
coaching even, and it's an important idea. Mentoring is maybe a little bit older. I mean,
Yes.
it's people have been mentoring other people for probably thousands of years.
absolutely. It goes way back to the mists of time.
Yeah.
And people have been mentoring others. And it was really, after I'd grown a charity to the national level, I realized I was working way too hard. So I wanted to come back and focus on Toronto. And growing organizations or growing projects is very natural to me. I can always see the progression or the path that we need to take, and I have no fear about growing big and going home afterwards. And so I was doing this anyway, and people said, well, why don't you come back and tell the smaller projects in Toronto how to grow? And so I did what's called a 360. I had people tell me the good, the bad, and the ugly of what they saw, people who reported to me, my board of directors, my neighbors, my family, and I found out that time management and systems, space management, and the balance between work and home were something that I naturally did really well. So that's what I focus on: space, time, balance. Once we get those under control, then we can move forward.
So Sounds like you had some pretty good karma to have all those things, just a natural talent for those
I
things.
hadn't thought of that, but thank you. I hope I have good karma.
So that's, did you go to school for business? Did you?
I took some business courses. I went to U of T for 16 years part-time, but I just promised myself I would take courses that I wanted to take.
Oh, so you didn't
So
even
I
bother
took,
with the...
yeah, I took about 8 business courses, some English courses, women's studies.
So who are the kind of ideal clients that you're working with right now? Like, what's the profile of the people you ideally want to be working with?
Okay, well, typically they've been in business over 3 years. They are service-based, and they're ready to grow. They're ready to introduce maybe products or social media aspect. You know, they're primed for growth, and typically we can tighten up the time management so they can get more done in less time. As I say, you know, scientists can add years to our lives, but we're the only ones who can add life to those years.
Mm-hmm.
So I find that people are really overcome by their business. So I kind of get them back into a better balance so that we can grow, make more money, have more fun.
So you're talking about efficiency. I always like the distinction between efficiency, which is doing the right things. No, doing things right. I don't know. And effectiveness, which is the other one, the opposite of it, right?
Well,
doing
now
the right
you've
things.
stumped me.
Doing the right things versus doing things right.
Oh, thank you.
You know
Yes,
what I mean?
perfect. Yes.
Yeah.
I'm always focusing on doing important things rather than urgent things.
Yeah.
Right.
That's that that Johari window, the 4
Ah, yes.
urgent, important,
4 quadrants
not
of
urgent,
time.
not important. Something like that. Cool.
Well done.
And you also do some workshops.
That's
as well.
right. Yes, yes. I have a range of workshops, but the small office strategies is very popular for people just to get an overview on space and time. And then I do some workshops on understanding money for entrepreneurs because
That was the Toronto dollar look.
Oh,
This is,
okay.
yeah, that was the Toronto dollar look.
No,
yes.
I find, actually, I do use, now that I think about it, I do use Toronto dollars as the currency in those workshops. But it's because I was using Canadian dollars and people were getting all upset at the end of the workshop when they were actually in charge of how much money they would take home, and they'd take home less than they came with. So I found I had to go and use Toronto dollars as the currency so that they wouldn't get upset. But anyway, that's a long story to say that we have to understand our emotional relationship with money before we can price our product or a service. So that's why understanding money workshop is so important and essential to entrepreneurs so they can understand their emotional relationship with money.
That sounds like a big concept right there.
Yeah.
The
It's very
emotional
cool.
relationship with money.
Elizabeth, do you get into anything about localized systems, economic systems, or is it more just kind of the personal relationship that the person has to money? Do you get into, in those workshops, into kind of alternative economic systems? Or?
I don't really. I mean, because I'm tying it in. I do introduce the Toronto dollar, tell them about it, and then we do it's an experiential exercise. So you really experience your emotions around the currency, and then when we tie up, we're talking about pricing your product and kind of challenges you can give yourself if you had trouble, for instance, asking for money. Then, you know, go into a major store and ask for a discount.
Right.
You know, we come up with some homework, so to speak, around shifting your emotional relationship with money.
Yeah.
What are some of the biggest problems or most common problems that people have in their the emotional connection to money?
Wow, that's a big question. I would say that we prefer to give money away rather than ask for money. When you're self-employed, that's a big challenge when you can't ask for your rate, or you can't ask for a collections call or something like that, it's a big challenge. I'd say that's the most common that I hear, that people just want to give money away and they leave a lot of money on the table, as it were, when they're negotiating fees.
It's interesting. I mean, this is interesting because I know I've got a problem with my emotional relationship with money. One of the reasons is probably the same reason I'm so big on the Toronto dollar, actually, is because when I look at how the money system works, I see the illogic of it. I see that in the long run it can't be sustainable. And there's just something wrong with it, with the money system somehow. Now, you're probably going to think that that tells me more about my personality characteristics than the faultiness of the money system, but you know, I think we should change money itself to be more like something like the Toronto dollar. Then we can all feel good about it. We can feel good about asking for it.
Would probably be easier than changing our emotional relationship with money.
Really? Do people have difficulty doing that?
Maybe
I mean,
it's a combination of the
people,
two.
you can't
Yeah.
change people.
Yeah, we have a lot of difficulty shifting, but awareness is the first step.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're taking the Toronto dollar, right?
Yes.
She has been
and-
since the
Of course,
beginning.
yes.
And you're using them at the workshops, and it sounds like people have a different emotional reaction to Toronto dollars, based on your experience, than they do to those obsolete Canadian dollars.
I don't know that I'd go that far, but when I was asking people to bring their own money, and even though I would reinforce that this is an experiential game and at the end of the game you will be responsible for how much you take home, at the end of the game when they had less money, they'd say, oh, now we're just going to trade back, you know, the money so that we can leave with what we came in with. And I'd say, no, you were in charge of what you had at the end of the game, and you knew when the game was ending and everything, and there was just not good karma happening
You had
there.
to break up a lot of fights, right?
Right.
So the Toronto dollars said, just give them all back to me, and you know,
Right.
they're ready for the next workshop.
Oh, that's too bad.
Yeah.
You'd have to do a little bit of processing around that.
I do,
Yeah,
yes,
If you're going to
I
continue with that idea.
I have. I've done it with business borrowers, businesses that have borrowed money for their businesses.
Oh yeah.
And I've had to do some debrief and processing at the end. Absolutely.
We need to get you into the casinos.
Oh please, I have my work
No,
here.
to teach them. Sorry.
But some other workshops were the United Way has had me do some workshops around the Mentors Circle,
Yes.
which is a project,
Yeah.
Show
long-term
that book, yeah.
project.
So
There
that's
you
your
go.
that's your first book, is it?
Yes, that's my first book.
Yeah.
And it's a peer mentoring model that I developed in the year 2000, tested it for about 4 years, and then decided that I really didn't need any more dependents. I would write the book on how people could start their own peer mentoring model so that I could go on to the next project.
And you also wrote in some magazines and newspapers as well. You've done a lot of writing, actually. in
That's
fact.
right, yes. Yes, I wrote for Toronto Business Times for about 6 years, and it was a fabulous opportunity to find out what business owners really responded to. So I would write an
Okay.
article a month,
Oh, I see,
you know,
yeah.
for 6 years, and I used the TTC, so I would be stopped on the subway and say, oh, I loved that article that you wrote, and I would know,
Right.
oh, okay, taking time away from the business is important to this entrepreneur, or, you know,
Right.
time management is important to this. And so it really helped me understand the really urgent things that I needed to educate people about.
Right.
Now, what do you think? It seems to me that we're moving into an economy, like it or not, where more and more people are functioning in the role of entrepreneurs.
Yes.
Do you think that that's a long-term trend? Do you think we have to get
I hope
used to
so.
that idea?
I hope so. I think people have been sold a bill of goods that they are going to get into one career and stay in it for a long time. And I think really we probably will have, you know, like our children. I have a 30-year-old and a 26-year-old. I think they'll probably have like 10 careers, even though they've gone to school extensively. You know, one's almost finishing her master's, one's at the PhD level. But they are going to have shifts along the way. And as an entrepreneur, you get used to that. You get more comfortable with that. You're not getting into a job and thinking, oh, this is where I'll retire. You know, you are responsive to
Right.
what's going on in the world.
Yeah, I think that's the key, though, is being responsive. And I think where you come in is, you know, if you're kind of wanting to grow your business or able to see beyond your vision or whatever, yeah, it's important. Again, I get that feedback. And I think some entrepreneurs are afraid of doing that. I think they're afraid of, I don't know, I guess about somebody, you know, looking at their things. But I think it's the best thing you could possibly do. I mean, that's how we grow as humans, and mentoring is probably the best way of doing it. I mean, we teach lessons at our studio, and we get some graduates from some of the big schools that come into the studio. They want to intern, and they don't know how to record audio. And then, you know, so one-on-one, I think, is definitely a real advantage, and I'm glad that you're doing that. You're doing some great work. I mean, you're working with the United Way. What are some of the other clients that you've worked with?
I do a lot with Alterna Savings.
Okay.
They're the biggest credit union in Ontario.
Yeah.
And so I work with their business banking side. I organize their networking cafe, and that's fabulous. It's a place where
Okay.
business borrowers can network. And also the Mosaic BIA over in the East
Right.
End of Toronto, they've brought me in to do a series of business trainings for the store owners and the BIA, but
That's good.
anybody can come in as well for, you know, nominal fee to 4 workshops and really get their business plan brushed up.
And you work with larger organizations, but you also work with entrepreneurs directly, right?
Absolutely. That's the core of my business. Yeah.
Cool. Well, thought we could talk a little bit about the Toronto dollar wrap up, because you've had quite an experience with the Toronto dollar.
Sure.
And I know I'm now quite involved with it, and we've had some talks, but maybe we could talk a little bit about your expansion to Gerrard Square. You did quite a significant push back in, when was it, 2007?
Yes, you know, it's vague right now and when
Yeah.
it was, but yes, there
Yeah.
was a time. I mean, I love Toronto dollar. I love what it stands for and what the potential is. And it was really in the St. Lawrence Market area when I met it. And I was living at Greenwood and Gerrard, very near Gerrard Square. And I had, when I'd grown this charity to the national level, I had a storefront in Gerrard Square called The Second Story. We had 5 in Canada. And so I got to know them quite well at Gerrard Square. So they were very responsive when I went in with Toronto dollar and talked to them about the project. And so about half of the store owners signed up right away, but we had some of the big anchors, the Food
Zellers.
Basics, the Zellers, you know, that sort of thing. So slowly but surely the smaller merchants came on, and it was quite good for a while, but then my business took a big jump, and I had some other challenges that I had to deal with, so I took my attention away, and it sort of shrunk back to the St. Lawrence Market area because there wasn't a sort of a rep in the area.
To oversee that. Yeah. We've had some talks about the Toronto dollar, but maybe we have been talking a little bit about money. I don't know, what do you see the future of the Toronto dollar? Like, what could it be in your vision as a business mentor? And that sort of thing. Where do you see its potential? But maybe you could just share your view.
Well, as you know, I haven't been directly involved for a while, but there's fans of Toronto dollar, and I think really, like myself, I accept Toronto dollars, but I've been yet to be paid in Toronto dollars because I'm dealing with business owners. So they'll write a check, and, you know, they want everything to be like that. But, you know, I'll go and use that money, buy Toronto dollars. So I think really going to like a debit card or something like that would get rid of that barrier. So that so that it, just that step, that extra step of buying the actual currency.
Yeah.
I notice that younger people, for instance, don't really keep cash in their wallet anymore. They're always
Yeah.
using debit cards, and in lineups and that sort of thing. So I think that although the concept is strong, I think maybe the tool is the weakness.
Yeah, well, I think it's definitely an added step. I think also, electronic and paper currency can exist side by side, but one of our challenges, and we've looked at that, I mean, before I'm new to the Toronto dollar, I'm pretty new, but when I kind of arrived on the scene, they were debating this card, and it was going to be
Yes.
used in the St. Lawrence market. And the problem was most of the businesses there, it wasn't an efficient tool for them. They didn't want it. They vehemently didn't want it, right? And it was kind of almost being pushed down their throats. So I kind of said, well, hey, wait a second. But I think, yeah, you're right. I think we need to look at that. One of my concerns is part of the whole thing around the Toronto dollar is kind of getting rid of those fees, the Visa fees, I'm trying to figure out a way that we can do a card like that, but not have merchants be charged this amount. Maybe we can work with a credit union and get the credit union to kind of offset that, and there wouldn't be a fee because of the promotional value or the good work for the community or something like that. I'm really, to me, I really feel that interest, a lot of the service fees, I want to go head to head with that, and the board does. I'm sure they do share that vision, and a lot of other people. There's some strong sentiment there, and I think we can create some economic systems that don't cost businesses as much, that aren't, because I remember when I was growing up, I could put money in the bank. I mean, I'm not that old, but I'm 38, and I got interest, and then all of a sudden it just disappeared. You could get 8%. I remember that. But now, but it's just, everybody's like, yeah, that's the way it is. Why? And I think I would like to see us figure out a way that we can kind of claim back some of that, our credit commons, as Thomas Greco says in his book, The End of Money and Future of Civilization. He says we basically have the right to issue credit with one another and create our own credit. We don't need a central bank, we're going to have a national currency, but we don't need to just have one currency.
Well, I think it'd be very interesting to approach a couple of credit unions to see if they would take it on as their, currency of choice.
How do you think Alterna would
Well, I'll introduce you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Well, that's it. We don't have any more time there, Glenn. We could talk all day about the Toronto dollar and the economic, social, political implications of it.
Yeah.
So we'll have to do that again
Well,
sometime.
but the great thing is we're talking about it and we're creating community as we speak. We're bringing people together, and that's what the whole thing about local currency does anyway. So
Absolutely.
brought Lalo here on the show.
Yeah, and we're going to play another track in a sec as we go out. But Elizabeth, if people want to get in touch with you, maybe they need a mentor. I don't know
Sure.
who doesn't need a mentor.
Sure.
How can they get in touch with you?
Get in touch with me through my website, www.officementors.com, or give me a shout, 416-463-1713. I'd love to speak with you.
Great. Okay. Thanks.
Okay.
Thank you, Elizabeth. And Glenn,
Yeah.
thanks. Great show today.
Hey, great show.
Not
Thanks,
even
you.
one turkey accident.
The turkey didn't poop on the floor today. When was that? January?
That
was Uncle George?
Or maybe even
Yeah,
before that.
we had a
but,
live turkey
yeah.
in one of the shows. Very
great.
fun.
So, anyway, we'll wrap it up now. Play another track from Lalo, and of course, TorontoDollar.com. People can check out
Absolutely.
more
Yeah.
about that.
Spend
and,
your Toronto dollars.
And check out Customer Appreciation Night tomorrow night
Yes,
at the
April 7th at 7 o'clock, and Toronto Dollar will be there selling the wine and beer tickets and also handing out information on the market and the whole thing.
And
So
there might
hope
even be
to
a
see you
turkey.
there.
Might be a turkey running around too.
Might be a wild turkey. You have to come and find out.
Okay, so we'll see everybody else tomorrow at noon for more Liquid Lunch right here at ThatChannel.com. Stay tuned, Wine Ladies coming up at 2:30, just a few minutes from now. See you then.
I know you're out there somewhere. I know you're having fun. Somewhere between the moon and the morning sun. And I know you have no worries, a thought without a care. We make choices and all is fair. But there's so much to do and it might never get done. Why must I always be the responsible one? And there's so little time left, a new day has begun. Just leave it up to me, the responsible one. Well, they say